Hello, everybody, and welcome to Houston Media Sources Public Affairs Public Access Broadcast. Tonight, I am joined with a guest panel that is amazing, a round of activists, as well as my friend and homie in the movement, co-host Francis Valdez.
Thank you so much, Fran. I'm really excited to be here.
Good. So tonight our discussion focuses on the public's fear and anger that how we can turn that fear and anger that we're seeing around the state and the country into action. There's been a change in our executive administration that's caused angst in various communities across the United States. We've seen in this Texas legislative session such a divisive time, as well as laws being passed that have really gotten our community in an uproar, because we see these laws are very harmful to various communities in the state. And also there are issues that are taking place right here in Houston and in Harris County. And so what we've seen out of that is an uprise in community engagement, from protests to rallies to more lines to go and visit our governmental offices. And just like tonight, more panel discussions around the city. Francis?
Yeah, so we have a lot of amazing people here today that are on the front lines of this work. And I know for myself and the people I work with, we feel physically, sometimes literally almost attacked by this negative energy coming at us from all levels. And being in Texas, we're feeling it at the federal level, the state level, and sometimes at the local level. So what we really want to talk about today is how do we, as people who are involved in movements and doing really important work, but that can be draining and difficult, how do we take care of ourselves? Because it's really important that we're in this for the long haul. This is going to be a long fight. We do live in Texas. Things aren't going to change tomorrow. And so that's the conversation we want to have today.
Nice. And so with that, let's introduce our guests. We'll start with J. Larissa Smith, who is an LPC and lead clinical case manager at the Montrose Center. We also have Nisha Randall, who is part of Pantsuit Republic, the Houston chapter, as well as Indivisible Houston. We have Daniel J. Cohen, who is also part of Indivisible Houston. And we'll be later joined by Candace Weber, who is with Black Lives Matter Houston. In fact, look, we have
So great to see
Candace
you.
Weber will be.
Good evening.
She is a nurse, and so she is on her way from work, so thank you for being here.
Yes.
It's my pleasure.
And you can also join the conversation as well. This is, you can call in with your comments or your questions at 713-807-1794. And so with that, why don't you kick us off, Francis?
So basically, could y'all just describe really briefly the work that you're doing and how it relates to everything that's going on lately?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start us off. So I'm Larissa. I am a licensed professional counselor, and I'm the lead clinical case manager at the Montrose Center, which is Houston's LGBTQ community center, formerly known as Montrose Counseling Center. And so I work specifically under the HIV grant that we have, or one of them at Montrose Center, hoping to empower Houston's LGBTQ and HIV positive clients, as well as, assist in just meeting the needs that they have. So I also do a lot of educational talks around town at schools and businesses that want cultural competency for LGBTQ issues. So a little bit of everything LGBTQ and counseling.
Great.
I'm Daniel Cohen, and I'm chair of Indivisible Houston. Our focus is on slowing down bad legislation, so killing bad bills or supporting good bills. Because of all the things you mentioned in your overview, Francis, unfortunately, a lot of times right now we're packing rooms and trying to kill bad bills more than we're trying to support good bills. But we do try, when somebody does introduce a bill that is positive or an action that's positive, we try to back that too. And we focus mainly on phone rallying, sit-ins, town halls and non-town hall events, and then just because of the nature of Houston, actions as well. And beyond that, really trying to show up at other actions so that we make sure that people know that there are always people in the streets and pushing back on a lot of this policy that's coming down the pipeline.
Great.
I'm Nisha Randall. I work with Daniel in Indivisible, as well as one of the leaders of Pantsuit Republic Houston. As Daniel said, we are pushing back on bad bills, bad politicians, working on taking care of our community. We like to partner with a lot of different allied groups that have been around doing this forever. And then we've got tons of new activists who were probably born the day after the election, like myself. So, there's so many people out there that are looking for something to do that haven't been activated before. So we try to channel that energy into something positive.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Kent. Where do I look?
You just look at us, conversation. Or
Sounds good. I'm Candace Weber. I am one of the lead organizers for Black Lives Matter HOU. I also am one of the organizers for Houston Rising, which is a collaborative group, and I get to work with these awesome guys on different actions and things like that. Our work at Black Lives Matter HOU is focused on empowering the Black community, reaching the disenfranchised, helping the Black community find their voice, raise their voice. We spend a lot of time trying to mobilize. We found in the Black community sometimes there's a false sense of security. A lot of people have a lot of hope. And those are wonderful things, but we're not as secure as we need to be, and hope is only as strong as the action that goes behind it. So we really try hard to ignite. That's really what it's about, just light a fire in our community and get moving.
Nice.
Thanks.
All right. So this topic came about because there is a feeling that there's this greater amount of fear and anxiety, and from not only in Houston, but I mean across the country and in various communities. And so this is kind of a two-part question, but do you agree with this notion? And start wherever. And if you agree with this or not, tell us why or why not.
I absolutely agree. At Montrose Center, it was interesting actually, I was about to say this time last year, but really at the beginning of last year, we started noticing as providers at the agency that we were having a lot of the same issues being brought up by our clients, and we started calling it election stress. And that, we were hearing a lot of, really negative statements that were coming out of a lot of candidates. And our president opened up his campaign with a speech that called Mexicans, murderers and rapists. And so not only our LGBTQ and HIV positive clients, but our immigrant clients, we're starting to really voice a lot of angst about watching this and being part of this, but at the same time feeling that tug of needing to be a part of this. And so how do we balance this? So we started talking, collectively as providers about this election stress, and we started coining it in notes that we were writing about our sessions and talking about it more. And we still write about it in notes and still talk about it in session, but now it's just become political stress or, administrative stress or social issues. And so absolutely, I'm seeing it in most of my sessions, I think, as well as in myself and in my colleagues, so for sure.
Anybody else?
I see a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, and it's real and it's warranted. In the Black community, there is already a lot of fear and anxiety just because of the fact that cops keep killing us. And on top of that, now we've got people like Jeff Sessions. Black people have already faced Jeff Sessions on voter suppression, voter fraud, racist antics and behaviors, pushing an anti-Black agenda. And now he's our Attorney General. We've got Donald Trump, who I don't care what title the rest of the country calls him, he's not my president. We've got Donald Trump in office, and he is right on board with taking away our basic rights. And in the Black community, we are literally fighting for our right to live. So Absolutely. I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of anxiety. And the only answer is to change things. That is the only thing that we can do at this point. And I'm talking radical change from local all the way up to national. And it's a big fight. The size of the fight instills fear and anxiety. So there is a lot to combat from in the Black community.
What about you, Dave? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say you touched on a great point in terms of the groups that are being targeted right now are the minority groups that have already been being marginalized and where there is already a lot of trauma. I'm thinking in particular about the trans community, where I'm meeting with folks every day who have this history of not just this low level of low being relative of minority stress, where there's these unconscious things that people are actively doing every day that sort of discredit somebody's existence or discredit their experience. But then they have history of trauma in terms of verbal harassment or physical assaults or even worse. And so I'm working with folks to try to heal these wounds and overcome these traumas and move forward. And then in the middle of that, we're just hearing all of these lies and all of these myths, and that's coming from their state leaders and their country's leaders. And so now we have new things that are being put on top of that while we can't even heal from what was previously there. It makes me, angry saying it. So, I think you touched on a good point with the minority.
Yeah. Anything to add?
I think, activism is at an all-time high, and that came from somewhere. So that's channeled energy. It was like a civic call to arms, right? So it seems like the proof is in the pudding. And there's a gap, and I got on the phone with my county commissioner the other day, and he asked me, what's wrong with Show Me Your Papers Bill SB4, right? He's asking these questions. Half of the time when I'm talking to a politician, all I want to say is, can you just stop hurting all our friends?
Right.
And the more you work with people on these issues, the more you kind of feel what's emanating off, from people and how they feel about these. And I think it's absolutely right. Fear is at an all-time high, and that's just driving activism at an all-time high. And the fact that activism is at an all-time high is one of the things that gives me some hope.
Absolutely.
So,
For sure.
Absolutely.
So, Francis, you want to?
Well, I was just going to say, I just wanted to mention also for the record, because I work with United We Dream, which is a network of undocumented young people, and they fought for a protection called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. In 2012, Obama announced it, and it allowed for a work permit for these individuals. So we have people who've had a work permit since 2012 who are now this week being told that it's pretty likely to be taken away. And so I think that there is, I just wanted to also raise that issue that yes, people are truly fearful for how they're going to survive, provide for their families, how they're going to, if they're going to even be in this country. And these are individuals who are actively contributing to our everyday life and really important to our city and our nation. So I know that I'm feeling this way just by doing the work. I feel the anxiety. I learned about a term called post-secondary trauma, which I'm not a psychologist or therapist, but it was really helpful to figure out what that was about, or you can feel the trauma from others just by working with them, and it becomes your own. And so with that, I think it would be helpful to understand if you all have any tips. We have a professional with us, but also those of you that may be kind of working through these issues, it would be helpful to share how do we deal with this? Because I think you're right, getting involved is important, but that can also be stressful, right? When you go to these hearings and you literally get yelled at, or you literally have to go to the Capitol like many of us did and be there until the early in the morning. We all have to work, we all have families and other responsibilities. We're tired, and now we're all really drained from the regular session. We're about to go into a special session. So what do we do as individuals and as a community to keep ourselves healthy?
When I found out that Jordan Edwards was killed, it almost knocked the wind out of me. Actually, it put me on my butt. And I sat there and I sobbed. And I felt like it was like I knew him. And I do. I know that black boy. I know that black boy that's an honor student and just wants to make his parents proud and going to a party, and that's just what teenagers do. He wasn't drinking or acting out, and this cop just comes and unloads a gun into a car that he cannot even see. The only thing that gets me through moments like that is just to allow myself to feel sad. And it took me a while to get back up off the side of my bed, but there was nothing else I could do. And if I don't just feel it, I know me, then I become a pressure cooker. And nobody wants to be around me when I blow. I don't want to be around me when I blow. And Jordan Edwards, just to say his name right now gives me chills. I can't do anything but feel it. And everyone else needs to feel it too. That could have been my son, you know? Yeah, I just have to feel it. I have to let myself grieve. And then wipe the tears, strap up, you know, my boots, and go back to kicking butt. Yeah.
How do I deal with it? I had a conversation with you today earlier to talk about how to deal with it, and I think one good way is to reach out to somebody who's been doing it for a long time. I know so many baby activists, that's what I call myself, who've only been doing this since after the election, and if you jumped head first into it like I did, then you at 6 months are kind of overwhelmed and burnt out, and this is a long process, and we can't afford to have people burning out at 6 months. So I think that getting advice from somebody who's been doing this, who realizes that you have to find a balance in it, as much as you want to do everything, you can't. If you're a leader in a group, you have to learn how to delegate, and you have to learn how to set boundaries. So I'm going to be working on that because I haven't been doing that really well lately, but I definitely am. But I see the like you were talking about, for instance, the secondary stress, because you're out here trying to advocate for all of these communities and you're feeling their pain on a daily basis. So it's hard, but you have to find outlets and ways to de-stress, or you're not going to be effective at all.
And maintain friendships.
Yes.
Maintain
Yes.
friendships.
Yes.
I mean, this woman sitting next to me right now, actually, all of you guys, I'm so glad y'all are cool. Because,
Well, thank you.
you know,
Working
I
really
mean,
hard on this.
you guys are my lifeline. You guys are my friends, and I'm so grateful for every single one of you. And sometimes I call Nisha because nobody else understands like Nisha does, you know, and the friends that I used to have, we're not friends anymore, you know, because there's been a definitive line drawn, and you're either for us or you're against us. So those friendships, and I am so grateful for the friends that I've made in this movement, because sometimes I still feel like I'm by myself, but if I didn't have you guys, I would really feel lonely. And I have an amazing wife too, that also helps.
You're definitely right. I was going to say the same thing, is that it's the people, you know, when you see other people who are courageous and they're doing things, and a lot of people, either whether they were fighting before or they stepped up, you know, thinking of them and thinking of what they're doing and being proud of the company that you keep, I think is really helpful. The second thing is just a basic check kind of thing, and this is going to sound cheesy, but it does help me. Is I learned a long time ago is like HALT, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And then if you're lonely or you're angry, there's probably a reason you're angry. And when you get to the bottom of it in activism, it's like, which issue is making me upset today? And that kind of helps identify. And then for me, I don't know if this works for everybody, but I like to see I like to either see or think of some kind of progress that's tangible, that's either a metric or something that happens. So like when I see Candace, you know, speak at Commissioner's Court, like one of the best speeches I've seen the entire,
Thanks,
this
Daniel.
period. You said what a lot of people in the city were thinking, and that's a tangible result where I know that the Harris County Commissioner's Court had to hear that day. So that, we're seeing people pack an airport, we're seeing people, delay the health care bill. When I see them, or we're seeing the city of Houston join the SB4 lawsuit and seeing everybody speak, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
It makes me feel a lot better, and it de-stresses a little bit.
Right on.
Yeah, I think as sort of basic as it sounds, that balance is kind of the name of the game, because we do have to sort of allow ourselves to be exposed and riled up enough to be motivated and to stay passionate about it, which isn't hard to do these days. But there is, there is the possibility of just avoiding completely, and that is a coping skill. It might not be the healthiest one or the most productive, but that is a coping skill. And so it's kind of finding that pendulum in the middle where we're allowing ourselves to stay kind of riled up enough to remain in the cause, but at the same time taking time out. And like you said, the little therapist in me, of course, was thrilled with your assessment, your introspection. That's not cheesy, that's good. But no, it's good for us to, be mindful. There's a little buzzword right there, but be mindful of how we're feeling. And when we start to get, worn out or angry with each other, that maybe that's a time for us to, kind of take a day off and breathe and do what you need to do.
And trust your friends.
Yes. That's
When Nisha looks at me and says, honey, you need to go home. I'm like,
You're just
okay,
fine.
Nisha. Yeah.
You know what? I am sorry.
You're right. Yeah.
So can we take too much action?
Yes.
Can we do too much?
I'm going to say, yeah, we can. And I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. You just want to fix stuff, and you want to fix stuff fast. So I feel like the more you feel like you can take on, the faster you can change things. I mean, that's not realistic, but I think that's a way a lot of people think. I know that's how I thought. Like when I first started this, I was like, oh, I'm going to do everything. And then I was like, well, if I do everything, I'm not going to do anything good.
There you
because
go.
I'm spread way too thin. But yeah, you can definitely take too much action. I think that the best thing for that is to realize that other people are capable of doing things, and that I'm not the only one. And that you can spread it out.
Play that back to her.
You really can. You can spread the work out. You really can. So I think you definitely can do too much, but you definitely have to be mindful of why you're doing it, which, like I said, is not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just probably not going to be the most effective way to do it. That's to change anything if it's all falling on one person or one group.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. I think that it is possible to take too much action, and I have that activist voice in my head that's like, oh no, boo, you need to be out there 24/7. And I would never tell a client that, and that helps me know that it's not the best advice for myself. And I think we know, just collectively as humans, that we're the most satisfied when our behaviors and our values are congruent. If we're behaving in the way that aligns with what's important to us, then we're content and we feel, satisfied with our lives. And if my only value was my activist work, then it would be fine for me to be, 24/7 in that. But I also value my health and my relationships and my job, as well as, my dog. And, so it's finding that balance, I think. And like you said, I think that there's that risk of getting burnt out, very, very quickly. I have a coworker who talked about, a few months in, that, she focuses on one specific sort of issue or one specific population. And those are the emails that she responds to and signs petitions for. Those are the rallies that she attends. And I remember having this no, that's not enough. And I was actually really grateful that she shared that, because it gave me a little freedom to be like, okay, you can focus on your thing and be, productive with that.
I feel like there's a famous activist quote that if you're always in the streets, then you don't have time to read.
Oh, yes.
So it's like, even if you're, in addition to de-stressing, to be effective and really like doing what we need to be doing anyway, there's still other things that we have to do aside from action-packed sort of, I mean, obviously going in the streets is important, but like if we just wave signs all the time, we never planned, we never learned, we never connected, we never strategized, even that, we'd be stressed and ineffective. So I think it's important.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think there's an irony too, just again, I'm thinking sort of, academically, therapist perspective here. But there is an irony in that the personality types, thinking of those like assessments, the people that are doing activism are also the personality types that lean towards perfection. And so there's this kind of balance and this struggle that I think a lot of folks in the community really have to work at keeping, because we're kind of prone to it,
Right.
Yeah, I guess for me, someone who's been involved in this work, I feel like forever at this point, but I think it's a lot of knowing who you are really well. And it sounds like most folks at this table have a good idea of who they are and what matters, right? But I do know a lot of people that we work with in the community and just in general, we meet all the time where it's pretty obvious that maybe there isn't some reflection about why they're doing what they're doing, and not just in terms of strategy, but how they're showing up in spaces. And I think that that's actually something that I think is really interesting, and how we can help each other, because sometimes someone not being okay can cause internal struggle, can cause strategies to be derailed, can cause problems within organizations and between organizations. And so I think that, us being able to monitor ourselves, but also, as you're saying, help each other. So I don't know if anyone has some ideas. I think that as a community, though, we always have to be mindful about each other and have a lot of love for each other, but also be really honest, right? And I think that to be honest with someone and to tell them how they're showing up is actually showing love, right? Because if you didn't respond to somebody, then it means you don't care. And if you want someone to grow, or you want to continue in community with them. So anyway, I don't know, it's just something that I was thinking about as everyone was talking. I don't know what y'all think, or if you have some experiences or thoughts around that.
Well, I think that showing up, yeah, I am that person. Now, my wife would say, she's a perfectionist, really. You should see her closet. But there are these things about me that I can't let slide. I just cannot do it. And you have to deliver it the right way. And if you don't deliver it the right way, then just stay home. I've had that attitude quite a bit, because it is so very important that we respect the fact that these are lives. These are people's lives. When we started first working on SB4, there is a very huge population that looks just like me that is being hit by SB4. Even if that were not the case, SB4 is my fight, because these are my brothers and sisters. And you don't have to look just like me for me to show up for you. You exist, and that's enough, And I've learned a lot about culture and the good things and the scary things and all of that because of this, because I was fortunate enough to be able to show up, and I was welcomed into other people's spaces. I've never received anything but warm welcomes at United We Dream, and I ask a lot of questions, and my questions got answered, and that was really important, that I was welcomed and received so well, because all I want to do is help, but I want to make sure that I help the right way, and that was understood right off the bat, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the open arms that I received. Like, hey guys, I just want to do something. What do I do? And that was okay, because the spirit is the right thing, and I have the respect for the fight, and it's important. It is really important. If you're going to show up, show up with an open mind and some thick skin.
That's for sure.
I work with Ashton Woods, you know, be thick-skinned, because if you ask him a question, he will tell you, and it may not be the answer that you want, but it will be the truth. And that is the important thing, show up in truth.
Right.
So.
And if you all have any thoughts that you want to add to the conversation, please call in. Again, it's 713-807-1794. And so with that, I want to talk a little bit about, we were talking about the work that you're doing and how you're getting involved. What about folks that are sitting here listening to this, or after the day after the election, or whenever they felt ignited or engaged, they want to get involved, but they don't know how? What are some ways that people can get involved?
There are so many of them. There's so many
yeah.
fights right now, because there's it's across local, state, and federal, and then within the context of the state, there's a county fight all the time. So I would say, since we have our websites, across the bottom of the screen, and names of groups across the bottom of the screen, everybody's active on social. To go find the thing that speaks to your heart, and then do the thing that you can do to get involved in it, is, to me, whatever speaks to you, whatever is really important, and whatever you can do. I looked at it and just saw this whole world of bad. So I found something that was really tangible that said, all right, ring their phones, show up at their office, knock on the door, demand answers, slow them down. I know it slows them down because the people who wrote that said we were on the other side of the door and the Tea Party bothered us, and that slowed us down. So I found that, and that spoke to me, because I said I can take this and go do something right now. So that's where I wound up. But, in all of that, I've learned about every movement that's going on and every fight that's going on, and I show up whenever I can to all of them.
I would encourage people to do what Daniel said, check out our websites, make you a list of all the groups, because there are a lot and a lot of different ways to be involved right now. And if you haven't been to anything, go to a bunch of different stuff. The one way that I think people are going to be sustained in these groups is if you're in groups fighting with people that you have things in common with, that you actually like. I see these people more than my family right now, honestly. And if I didn't like him, and if I didn't love her, well, I love you too. It'd be a big deal. It would be, but I'm tired, but I feel kinship with them, so we can fight together because we like each other. But if you are going to a group and you have personality conflicts, keep it moving, because that group doesn't need you, and you don't need to waste your time there. You find something besides the actual fight, because there's going to be different ways that you can resist, but go to where it feels right for you to be.
Right.
Definitely.
Sometimes people think that it has got to be something huge.
Right.
I've got to plan a march, and I'm going to march from this end of Harris County all the way to the other end of Harris County, and you better have some really good shoes. But it doesn't have to be some big thing. Sometimes it starts as simple as, I don't know much about Black lives, so I'm going to go to the library and I'm going to check out a book, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to read it, and then in my circle, I'm going to start having these conversations. I've had a lot of white people ask me, what should I be doing on the day-to-day? Well, the next time you're sitting at Thanksgiving and your uncle starts to pop off with his racist comments, tell your uncle it's time for him to go. Don't let your children hear that. That is resistance right there. Stop it where it starts. And doing those types of things makes a big difference. One, your uncle knows I'm not cool with that. But two, your child, our future, sees my mom, my dad stand up for other people. And that's the type of person that I want to be. And our children, God help us if they are still fighting this fight. That is really where my hope lies. And that is where all of the things that we're dealing with right now, they're going to end up being carried on their backs. So right here at Thanksgiving, you tell that uncle to get up, because he doesn't deserve to sit in the presence of your 8-year-old impressionable child. That is resistance, and that matters. That goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that there's a couple ways. So a lot of the work, depending on the issue, I think should be led by the communities most affected. And what I mean by that, and I think everyone at this table does a really good job of being a good ally. So if you are trans and you care about trans issues, you should look for a group, right, where you can learn how to talk about your issues, because we need to hear from the trans community about how we should be fighting SB6 or whatever they're going to call it in the future. Right. And they should be leading, and the rest of us should help. Or, like undocumented immigrants, we should listen to what they want to do and support. So if you aren't part of those communities, then again, everyone at this table, I think, does a really good job of listening and then saying, what do you need? And then just showing up. Because again, for the communities that are the ones under fire, sometimes we can't show up, right? Sometimes the depression or the anxiety or the fear, and that's what I worry with the immigrant community, that it's slowly chipping away of the freedom and the feeling that people can speak out because of real fear of ICE and deportation. And so in these moments, we actually do need everyone else to come out and put their lives on the line. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just also thinking about maybe how you want to get involved in the fight based on what you're dealing with. And then also, and again, if you're a white man, well then great, show up and use your influence and talk to other white folks, right? Like you said. So I think it depends on our positioning in society, your socioeconomic status, professional abilities, etc. But whatever privilege you have, we all have to use it, I think is also the key.
Not just at the rally.
Right, and in whatever way makes sense.
Home, take it to work, take it everywhere.
Right,
exactly.
Take it to church.
Yes.
Look,
Take it
everywhere.
to church.
So we talked a little bit about, taking care of oneself. A lot of times in this movement, I hear, and I'm sure y'all hear, the word or the phrase self-care. So they're like, you gotta have self-care. So is that just a buzzword?
I mean, we all sort of chuckled when you said it. It kind of tells us that there's a bit of like a cliche there. And so I do think that it's definitely become a buzzword. And I think we were even joking beforehand about it. It sounds like self-helpy or, kind of cheesy. And I think for some folks, it might even sound selfish or like privileged, to say like, I'm gonna have some self-care or like, I'm gonna have some me time. But I think just like we've all addressed, it is vital because we're gonna get burnout. And I think it's so, like you were talking about, kind of taking those introspective moments to like reflect and just access what's going on internally. If we're not able to do that, we're just not going to be able to be the kind of help that we want to be. I also like the fact that practicing that now and in this moment and with ourselves just increases our like emotional intelligence overall. If we know how to take care of ourselves, we can tell our partners how to help take care of us. We can tell our loved ones. We can talk to our colleagues and our boss about what we need. So there's just good things that come from us understanding ourselves and putting that into action. And it is not always easy.
It's not. It's not easy at all. I find myself thinking, I'm going to have some self-care time. Hun, do you want to go to dinner? Or something like that. And then I'm like, I am doing this for myself because I haven't seen my wife and I think, maybe we should spend some time together. Or I'm doing this for myself because, well, I just got a text from my daughter that said, hey, Mom, are you still alive? So I have a problem myself with the whole self-care ideal. I've said several times, I am doing self-care. I care about my rights. I care about my liberties and things like that. And it is something that I have got to work on. I've got to be true to my own weaknesses, and I can't save the world all at once. But I can't save the world, you know. So there's where I stand with self-care. So I do what I can.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to schedule it. I have to. And it sounds cheesy or, you know, kind of regimented. But if you know me, you know I am that obnoxious gym rat that is filming herself while she's lifting weights and feeling
She is rocking it.
I feel good. I feel good. So, and it's good because, you know, having like CrossFit classes that start at 5, 6, and 7 give me 3 options, and I better decide at the beginning of the day, and you got to leave by this time to go make that happen. And that is my hour, and it's my value. I can be an activist and also work towards Serena Williams' arms. You know, like that's what I'm working towards. So for me, it has to be scheduled, or I'm gonna stop doing it. You know.
Yeah, there's also a friend of mine told me one time, like how that there's some writings about how self-care is actually in everything you do, right? And so I'm not saying I know how to do this, but it's an interesting concept. And I think it could be about being like really intentional and making sure, again, like that, I think you said it, your values are aligned with the work you're doing. Because I think sometimes in this work, you know, we also change, right? So how you show up doing this work, for me, I'm going through like my own internal process of feeling a little older. I'm not old, but I feel older.
Like, calm down.
I feel like a real adult now, you know, and like
nobody's older almost.
Right? You know, knowing that like maybe my position or my the way I'm showing up in the movement should change, and that's okay, right? And that we all have different roles at different times in our lives because of where we're at in our activism or our personal lives or our professional life or whatever, but to making sure that it makes sense for us. And I think that that's what happens a lot of times with people doing our work is that egos can get involved, and you have people that are trying to define, this is what it means to be a good whatever, right? This is a member of this group, or this is how we always have to show up, or who's more down than the other person. And I don't feel that at all in this room, but I think that there are these forces, right, that we always have to be very grounded in who we are and how we're doing the work. And so that hopefully the work, as we've been saying, actually brings us life, right? And it can spur our energy and keep the fire going. I don't know if I've figured it out, but I think it's a really interesting concept that, I don't know, I'd love to keep talking about. And I think just having these conversations are really important because in our communities, we don't talk about this stuff. I feel like, you know, mental health is a difficult thing to talk about in general, but especially in, I think, the work we do, we're supposed to be tough all the time, you know, and there's this perception that we are, and maybe we are, and sometimes we're not, right? So, I don't know, just some ideas to think about how we can maybe do it on an ongoing basis.
Well, and again, the communities being targeted are the ones that tend to have more stigma about mental health and seeking out, you know, self-care. And so it just makes it a cycle that's hard to stop, which is, again, why I'm also appreciative of the conversation that just allows that freedom and kind of normalizes the stress and, you know, just gives us a little bit of a chance to unload a little bit of that.
I know definitely as Black women, we have this thing where we're supposed to be there for everybody and rock solid and strong Black woman. And I think I said I was a strong Black woman to you the other day. I don't know.
It back
I don't know why I said that, but
Because it's true.
and I mean I am, but I'm not always.
Right.
And I think we have to be able to give ourselves permission to not always be a pillar of strength.
Right.
And that doesn't take away from our effectiveness as activists or as an awesome person, but you know, we are people and we have, you know, fears and things that we need to get back to ourselves, and we just have to really realize that as awesome as we all are, we can take a break and we can cry and we can be sad about things, and it doesn't take away from who we are as strong women, but you know, we're human. And we don't have to live up to that thing where, you know, Black women just, they don't talk about being sad, or they, you know, you're just this this rock for the community.
Right.
And, you know, we can be rocks, but, you know, we can be silly putty too.
Especially the silly part. We do enjoy that. You know, I wrote one of my 3 a.m. I can't sleep. I wrote a poem. It's I Am Not Your Mule. And I was kind of feeling like that, you know, and being a Black woman, we carry a lot in our community, you know, and when we look at all of the social injustice that our families face, our community, our people face, you know, this school to prison pipeline, it's horrible. So just that part right there, you're taking our husbands, our sons, our daughters. We find grandmothers who've raised their children already. I talked to a woman when I very first started out, and she asked me, I asked her first, what's important to you? And I wasn't ready. I was not ready for the answers that she gave me, because at that point, I didn't even know how to tell her where to go, you know, but she says, I have 3 sons, and all of them are in prison right now. Collectively, they will serve 40 years. Collectively, they had less than 10 pounds of marijuana. All 3 of them. They all have children. The moms work. I'm supposed to be retired, and now I run a daycare for my grandchildren. I don't get paid. I am not your mule. You know, I can't be responsible for carrying all of these things. And as I talk to Black women about being the mule in this community, and not just in the community, but in this country, you know, Black women, we're not the DNC ATM. You know what I'm saying? And if you are going to take my money, then I expect my issues to be upfront in live color, you know.
Good point.
I am not just the workhorse. I'm not the mammy. I'm not your sex vixen, you know, and all of those things. And those are the things that Black women, we carry that. Well, I'm dumping it because I'm not your mule. And I'm not going to carry what you think I am. I'm going to carry who I am, what I know I am. And if you can't accept that, there's a lot of other space you can occupy. You don't have to be in this zone, you know. So that's really, those are my 3 a.m. awakenings.
Thank you.
You know,
So,
yeah, I do. I have personal
I like
space.
it. Oh, man, I like it. I like it. Dan, you want to add something?
I think, you know, people have said it before, it's not like there's an official poll, but 80% of the people who I see who are active are women.
We rock.
Undoubtedly. I would like to find a way to get young men to step up so that the women who are doing a lot of the work right now and are strategizing and organizing maybe could then move into office or whatever position, you know, leadership role that they want to move into, and that won't fall off. Because I think Candace is right. There's a lot of work to be done, and it's not like, I mean, and it's not just activism. It's PTAs, it's education, it's medical industry. It's anywhere where there's really solid, like, necessary work that holds society together. There are tons of women, and a lot of them are moms, and they're working their butts off. So it'd be great if 18 to 36-year-old men could step up and pick up the slack on some of those things, and not, you know, make a ruckus and put themselves in the middle of everything all the time too, but maybe just step up to help carry some of the load. I even noticed this, you know, I'm married, I notice this stuff at home, and when I do my best to correct it over time. I do it in activism too. I'm not proud of it, but it happens, and I do my best to correct it over time. When I was at the airport, if y'all know me, I have an addiction to amplified devices, and I'm a little bit loud. So when I get too loud, and then somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're not letting your immigrant brothers and sisters speak," and I said, "You're right." And I didn't touch the megaphone for the rest of the time except to move it from one person to the next, just to help and make sure it didn't disappear into a crowd of thousands of people. You know, similar thing happened outside of a congressional office, and somebody said, "Look, I want to hear other voices." I said, "Okay, that's fine." So now I always make sure, like, you know, to try to hand it off to people if I can. A lot of people are shy around megaphones, so they wind up not taking it. But the point is, like, creating that space and making sure, I completely agree, making sure to acknowledge that it's not, I mean, there are people who have been fighting for a really long time, people who take up, you know, who do the majority of the work. Like, we should acknowledge that and try to help I think, and try to pick up whatever we can in a respectful way.
Right. Absolutely.
Good point.
So I know we're getting close to the end of this hour, and we've seen the websites going across and what y'all are doing on the TV. So I'd like to take a little time to see what actions or anything that your organizations or community centers are doing, if y'all want to mention it.
Sure, absolutely. So Montrose Center is always looking for volunteers. So if anybody's interested in volunteering at Montrose Center, everything from, administrative stuff to helping out with Pride, it's super flexible, and our volunteer coordinator is a joy to work with. And so you can go to the website and apply there, and there's always ways. You can also donate to us. That's always appreciated as well. I'm sure everybody around this table understands that. So that's how you can help at Montrose Center.
Indivisible Houston has 3 things that are coming up really, really soon. On tomorrow, actually at 6 o'clock at the TMC Dryden light rail line, we have something called the Death Train going on. It is an immediate response to the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad healthcare bill that's currently trying to make its way through the Senate, which will affect 100% of the American people, and like most other pieces of legislation that are that bad, will disproportionately affect those who are most in need. It's a reverse Robin Hood. It steals from the poor to give to the rich, and people will die, lose their insurance, deal with terrible suffering, and or go bankrupt. Maybe not in that order, but you understand. So we will be meeting up there to make sure that people who are filing onto the train hear that message, but we'll also be taking a ride and do what you might call like a mannequin challenge style thing. So everybody will make sure to kind of slump over in their chair with a sign to raise awareness of the issue. On Tuesday, we're carpooling up for the special session, as a lot of groups are. And then at the end of the month, actually on the 30th, we're holding our general meeting. It'll be at 2 o'clock on a Sunday. Location TBD. Normally we hold it at the wonderful Montrose Center, but y'all got so popular that you're booked. Which is good. I'm glad that people are booking the rooms. But that's going to focus on what's happened over the last 6 to 7 months. Since inauguration, since it'll be roughly 6 months when we hold our general meeting. So we're going to have a candidate, an official, and an activist talk a little bit about what they've observed. And it's people who are, we chose them either because they're everywhere, like Bill McLeod, or
I love that.
or because they have a central role in a fight and they can tell us kind of a little about what's going on, particularly in their world. And so just to give people a chance to kind of reflect and see from people who are everywhere all the time.
So Daniel covered everything for Indivisible. For Pantsuit, we have our general meeting coming up on the 26th. It's going to be abbreviated, showing up for the movement training from Surge, which is the group that is showing up for racial justice. They're going to kind of give an overview of their maybe like 3 or 4 hour training in 2 hours. So if you can come out to that, it really shows people who are new to activism how you come and join a movement that you haven't been previously part of, especially if you're not trying to center whiteness. If it's Black Lives Matter, then it kind of teaches you how to show up respectfully and be most effective in to be an ally, basically. So we're doing that, and like Daniel mentioned, the special session carpool, which is part of a group of organizations all over Texas called One Resistance, where we're just going to go to the Capitol on the 18th, which is the kickoff day of the special session, and have a rally, a teach-in, people meeting with their reps, and then on the 22nd, we're going to have another teach-in locally about the issues that are going on at the special session as well.
Black Lives Matter, the next big thing we have going on is on July 29th. We will be meeting up at the Shrine of the Black Madonna at 10 a.m. and we are going to have an organizing meeting. We're going to start teaching Black history to our children. I don't know if you guys know who Ronnie Dean Byrne is, but she's phenomenal. And there was a point where she looks at her child's textbooks and she's like, this is not the truth. And what we're noticing is a lot of our young children, they don't understand what a fight our ancestors put into this. You know what? It is such a phenomenal thing to be able to gather in public, raise your fist in protest, because there was a point in time where Black people were not, it was illegal for us to gather in public. And we're going to start teaching, so that will be our big thing to go for this month. On the 19th of July, one of my co-leads is going to be doing a gathering, Black people in classical music. We show up everywhere, and when we show up, we have beautiful things to offer. So it's going to be an opportunity for musicians to gather and talk and formulate their own avenue of activism and things like that. So, and you know, we're doing all kinds of stuff. So check us out we have a public page on Facebook. But come out.
Nice.
Kick butt with us.
Great. So United We Dream has a weekly meeting on Thursday evening. So if you want to follow us, go to United We Dream Houston Facebook. And there's also an online petition that I hope everyone will sign right now because of the threat of losing DACA. We're going to join all the special session stuff we can to show up for all the issues that are happening. And also, though, looking toward September 1 when SB4 becomes implemented, hoping that we can all work together on a large action, really wanting to focus on policing, which is something that prevails all of our communities, making sure that we understand SB4 for what it is, which really is taking advantage of the fact that we have so much racial profiling in our police systems and justice in the criminal justice system. So, and then also on the board of the GLBT Political Caucus, and we meet the first Wednesday of every month. So hope to see y'all at some of those events.
All right, well, we have come to the end of our hour, and so one of the things that I always do, and I'll have to move quickly because I think I only got about a minute, but I like that when we think about this movement and think about the future, what is one word that comes to your mind? Let's start with you, Francis.
Hope.
Power.
Hope.
Unity.
Together.
Together. All right. I like that. So once again, thank you all for tuning in, and just really thank you to the guests, to the panelists, to Francis for being in here today. This conversation was so good. I hope that we can continue this type of dialogue, not only here, but in community meetings as we go forward and we go out. But thank you all for tuning in to Houston Media Associates Public Affairs, Public Access broadcast. And we hope that you're able to walk away from this conversation with something, got a few more tips, a little bit more information. And so with that, I'm Fran Watson. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our co-host, Francis Valdez, and good night.
Thank you.